Nick Gowing, the founder and director of the Thinking the Unthinkable project, but not in unthinkable territory here at the moment, although we would have been had we been meeting 2 years ago. But what we want to do for the next hour, we're going to have 2 sessions back to back. First of all, talk, as you can, it's disappeared, talk about the Black Sea and the Eastern Med and the prospects for energy developments there. And then we're going to move on to a discussion about the case of EU energy sovereignty, which is a fascinating discussion. Is it the case for EU energy sovereignty, or just discussing EU energy sovereignty? And we will have 3 speakers then, but for the first 20 minutes, we're going to have the briefing about the Black Sea. So let's go ahead with that, Sergiu. And introduce yourselves.
Yes, I will start. Hello, everybody. My name is Mathioulakis. I am the academic director of the Greek Energy Forum, which is a think tank in Greece, where energy professionals from the country who live in Greece and other countries in Europe, they try to promote knowledge about energy. And today we are going to talk about the security implications of new gas findings in the Black Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean. I will also let my colleague Sergiu Mitrescu to introduce himself, and then we can get going.
Hi, I'm Sergiu Mitrescu. I'm the program director at New Strategy Center from Romania, Bucharest. Our institution is concerned with all matters concerning security in the Balkans and the Black Sea region.
Okay, then we get started. First of all, what are we here to talk about? This is a study that both think tanks we conducted together. And why do we talk about the Black Sea and the Eastern Mediterranean together when it comes to energy and security? Well, the truth is that we're talking about 2 massive water areas that have the potential to give power, energy-related power, to the countries surrounding them. And these are 2 areas that they form a continuum. These are 2 areas that are actually forming the eastern flank of NATO, and they can function, they have the potential to function as a frontier for whatever the European Union and the US would like to deter, which would be, in this case, Russian influence in Europe, Chinese security interests in the region, as well as security and terrorism-linked threats to Europe. At the same time, this is the eastern side, the neighborhood of the European Union, and this makes the whole region, when you see it as a total, a very interesting area to examine about the relationship that energy can have in some strategic issues and the security implications of the new gas findings and the potential conflicts or alignments of interest that connect the 2 regions. What we did in this study is that we started looking into the situation in each of the regions. We tried to find common things when it comes to the security implications of the existing and the new findings and the exclusive economic zones in which this energy potential is lying, because this is directly linked to the security interest of the region. To do this, we have went through a theoretical instrument that I have presented some time ago, which is the strategic framework for energy projects. The idea behind this is that we are usually very fast in characterizing any energy project that it's big enough, so it involves big capital, or it involves more than 1 country. We're very often very eager to characterize it as strategic. However, I find that we haven't really looked into what makes something a strategic project. Just because it's big, just because it involves a lot of money, doesn't make it strategic. So what we did is that we have this, what you see in the screen, a framework, a strategic framework for energy projects that links basic aspects of international relations theory to energy. So according to this framework, we have been examining some major projects in the two regions under three criteria. The concept is that for something to be called strategic, which means that it advances a country's objectives in surviving in the international system, it needs to fulfill some of these criteria. And this criteria, the first one, is the contribution that this project can have in the country's efforts in maximizing its power in the international system. The second one is its ability to generate significant change in the balance of power within a system, whether this is the subsystem of the Black Sea or the Eastern Mediterranean or overall the system. And the third one, it's the project's ability to enhance through either internal or external balancing the self-help efforts of each state to survive in the international system. So what we're doing basically is that we're running through some of the big projects, the big ideas that run in the two regions, and we see whether they fulfill these criteria. Then the second thing we did is that we went to look in the special conditions in the exclusive economic zones in these two regions. Some of them are contested regions, some of them are changing from countries that are not content with the situation as presented by international law, and there are some commonalities there, and so we're examining what is happening. So this is what we're going to talk about. Sergiu is going to start with the Black Sea, and then I will come back with the Eastern Mediterranean.
Thank you. So as you all probably know, the Black Sea has been at the forefront of this recent geopolitical struggle, and which obviously created should I bring closer? Okay, which obviously created a systemic energy shift unseen probably in the past century. The newcomers in this energy game in the Black Sea are Romania and Turkey. I'll start with a rundown of Romania's gas discoveries in the Black Sea, which currently amount to about 200 billion cubic meters. As of now, the country is one of the least dependent on Russian imports, running a deficit of about 20 to 25% of its annual consumption of around 12 billion cubic meters. In the summer of 2022, the first two parameters went online in the Media West parameter, amounting to about 1 billion cubic meter per year. The jewel of the crown in Romania's discoveries is definitely the Neptune Deep parameter, which amounts to approximately 100 billion cubic meters of gas. An investment decision will be reached this year, and investment will go online in 2027, amounting to approximately 8 billion cubic meters per year. This, alongside covering Romania's needs, this will free up loads of gas for regional exports, because the country has a really balanced energy mix, ranging from hydro and nuclear. The country is currently working on expanding its nuclear capacity with the Chernobylsk nuclear power plant, reactors 3 and 4, and seeking to implement the American-made small modular reactors, which will of course free up capacity for exports in the region. To put things into context, Moldova consumes about 1.5 billion cubic meters per year, Serbia approximately 2.5, and Bulgaria in between 3 and 3.5. So the gas left after satisfying its internal needs would be able to cover most of its neighbors' needs, allowing them to wen themselves off Russian gas. The second newcomer is Turkey, which recently discovered 700 billion cubic meters in the Sakarya gas field, and it sounds like a lot, but when fully operational, it will only cover about a quarter of the country's needs. So there won't be much regional exports coming out of this discovery. In between Romania and Turkey, obviously, is Bulgaria, which hasn't successfully explored its gas resources. Probably, given that Turkey discovered gas in the Sakarya field, that would provide a new impetus for Bulgarian authorities to try and explore for more gas in their continental shelf. And of course, when talking about Georgia and Ukraine, although there is gas in their continental shelf as well, that's still a rather prospective discussion given the precarious security environment in the Black Sea. Regarding transport routes, the Trans-Balkan, which was somehow in disarray before the war, is now proving incredibly useful due to the reverse gas flows bringing in Azeri gas in the region. And the second one is, of course, BRUA, which will enable Black Sea gas to flow into Central Europe and then beyond into the European gas market. It's also important to know that recently the Iași-Ungheni-Chișinău gas pipeline went online, which is the only pipeline on the territory of the Republic of Moldova which is not owned by Russian companies, and it allowed Moldova to effectively stay afloat during the energy crisis of late 2022 and early 2023 by importing Romanian gas and keeping the entire energy system afloat. As prospective projects, there are discussions on an underwater energy cable, which is meant to bring energy from Azerbaijan through Georgia and Romania and then into the European energy market, which is still under consideration, but hopefully it will receive funding. So regarding this massive regional energy shift that we are witnessing, although we have two newcomers, as I mentioned, Romania and Turkey, given that Turkey is rather energy hungry, most of its gas from the Sakarya field won't make it onto the European markets. And regarding its ambitions to become a regional gas hub, which has been a main foreign policy priority, that's questionable as of now, since most of its infrastructure developments are geared towards bringing Russian gas into the market, which might not be a sustainable development path. So all in all, the Neptune deep perimeter has the potential to satisfy the region's needs for about a decade, enabling Bulgaria, Serbia, and especially the Republic of Moldova to wean themselves of Russian gas. And from now on, Michalis will pick it up and speak about the Eastern Mediterranean.
First of all, let me apologize for going really rapidly through this. This is a text of approximately 10,000 words that were prepared, and we are trying to present it as fast as possible. So I believe my colleagues, they have some printed copies, so everybody just feel free to take something and you can study a little bit better afterwards. I'm going to talk about the Eastern Mediterranean, and just if you will allow me to make a small and very fast connection to the next panel talking about sovereignty. Sovereignty is all about control. And when it comes to energy sources, we have two issues. We have energy sources spawned within one country. Usually they're within one country. In some cases, they're between countries. And then these energy sources need to be transported from one country to another. When the energy is being, when energy is being transported from one country to another, then the concept of sovereignty is getting a little bit dubious and things need to be discussed. Again, back to what we're doing here, is we're trying to see what are the security implications of this situation. So when it comes to the Eastern Mediterranean, I've separated 4 of the major findings in the region. There are much more, but right now we have Zor in Egypt, we have Leviathan, the previous one please. We have Leviathan in Israel, Tamar in Israel, and Aphrodite in Cyprus. These add up a capacity, not the reserves, I'm talking about the capacity, the output capacity of approximately 75 billion cubic meters a year. Now, this is important only if you look at it. Here I have what Russia has been exporting to the EU before the crisis, before everything has started, which was about 130 BCM. So in theory, we have more than 50% of the imports the EU had from Russia could be covered from the East Med. However, we need to see these energy findings, if they are more important for the countries to keep and for their own consumption, for their own security interests, rather than export. And the case is that, of course, although in theory this could cover more than 50% of EU needs, this is not going to reach, these amounts are not going to reach the European market because simply the countries who are producing them, they have reasons to keep them for themselves. And the reasons are security linked. If you could go to the next one. So what we did here, again, control of energy has to do with what you do with it. You produce it, but then again you have to transport it, to sell it someplace. So what we have here, what we checked when we talk about energy projects, we check about the East Med pipeline. It's a pipeline in the region that has been talked a lot as a potential strategic project. So here we're running through the criteria that I told you earlier from the strategic framework that we have constructed and see whether they meet the criteria. And what we see is that for each country, the same project means different things. So the East Med pipeline, for Cyprus, it meets all three criteria when it comes to its strategic value. It has high strategic value because it enables the country to maximize its power in the system, it changes the balance of power, and it helps Cyprus's self-help efforts, both with external and internal balancing, in the sense that the economy gets stronger and it can build alliances. So for Cyprus, this is a strategic project. However, for Greece, Israel, Egypt, and Lebanon, it is not. Why? According to this framework, it does not change significantly the power of these countries. It doesn't change the balance of power, and partially enhances each country's ability to enhance its self-help efforts through external balancing. It doesn't even help build alliances. It helps cooperation. So the same project is highly strategic value for Cyprus, not so much strategic value for the rest of the countries. When it comes to the major players interested in the region, the same project has a medium strategic value for the European Union. Out of the three criteria that we have set, it helps, it enhances EU's self-help efforts to detach itself from dependency on Russia. And when it comes to the United States, again, it has low strategic value. It doesn't help, it doesn't raise the position of the United States in the system. It doesn't change the balance of power, but what it does, it helps US efforts to deter Russian influence in the European Union, partially through cooperation. All the countries that we see are allies of, in the region, allies of the United States. However, it doesn't solve anything when it comes to Greece and Turkey. So for the United States, this is partially, has a partial strategic value. This is as far as the East Med. Let's go to the next one, and I'll promise to be faster. The other thing which we looked into is what exists right now for the East Med. What exists right now for exports is the two Egyptian LNGs. Similar to what we see with the East Med, they are of high strategic value for Egypt, because of course it helps them across the board. It has low strategic value for everybody else. So what we see here is that the two major options we have for exporting the gas potential of the East Med, for some countries it's high importance, for some others it doesn't. This gives an explanation of why we are stalling right now on figuring out a credible way to move the natural gas from the East Med to the European Union. Because we have differences on how each country sees strategically the same projects. And that's why they're stalled. Now, when it comes to the EEZ, and I finish within 20 seconds, this is, we did a lot of work on that. Primarily what I need to focus on that, we have some cases where we have problems with the EEZ. We have Greece and Cyprus and Turkey having issues. On the other hand, we have the case of Lebanon and Israel that they figured out a solution. What we emphasize in our analysis on this is that Israel and Lebanon, they found a solution because there were already the limitations Cyprus had with its country, so it had narrowed the problematic areas, let me say, so it was easier to negotiate. And secondly, when it came down to it, Section 1B of the agreement said that whatever would eliminate offshore doesn't make us make any kind of arrangement in the land. So again, we see that critical security issues overcome whatever happened with the energy issues, and that's why this could advance.
Very, very briefly, we need to realize that one's independence, it's in effect a broken dependency, and that much of the region's gamble resides in offshore critical infrastructure, which is of course incredibly vulnerable to lawfare practices given the erosion of international norms. So we need to be aware that all those projects will run at 100 kilometers away from the shore, and given what happened in Nord Stream and that the new generation, the Russian new generation warfare, it's more of a state policy. We need to realize that given that geopolitical leverage is going to be lost through those projects, they will be highly vulnerable to acts of sabotage and harassment, which will of course impact freedom of navigation as well, adjacently by blocking perimeters in the country's exclusive economic zones, which are not covered by Article 5, and I will end it here. Thank you.
Well, look, thank you both very much indeed.